Mark,
Ramble. Yes, Scott.
cunnilingus is a terrible fucking word. And you know what? I am openly saying this when I know that, like, fuck you, Brandon. God damn it. One of my coworkers has a bunch of my other coworkers watching our show now. And you know what? I hope you guys did not have your speakers turned up, because we're going to talk about this right now. Mark, it's a goddamn fucking terrible word. I forget where I heard it from this week, but I was just like, that word is still terrible. A troll person. A person who was a troll
lives underneath a bridge
before the internet came up with this. They were just like, how can I make things worse for everyone else to exist from henceforth? And they literally used that, henceforth, probably because it was like free. Are you looking it up?
Yeah, but my search just went cunnilingus HIV. What?
What?
That got dark. God damn it, Google.
For those who don't know, this is Great Scott Marcus. I'm Scott, and that one's Mark, and sometimes we talk about weird shit. This isn't even the ramble for this section, but Mark, it's been a while.
Yeah,
I heard that recently. Dude, I just imagine, like, a group of people who were, like, coming up with words for shit, like, for the dictionary. They were just like, okay, we need something for going down on a chick. What are we gonna call it? And like someone came up with something like really quaint and sexy and romantic and eloquent, and they were just like, okay, we're gonna call this female. Let's go with female edification.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
It's gonna be very sweet and loving. And
can you use that in the future?
Yeah, of course. And
Sweet.
and the guy who was in charge of this shit, he was like, that's beautiful. And he gets on like a loud horn, and he's just like, okay, we're calling it cunnilingus, and everyone around him is just like, what the fuck? It sounds like a lizard.
Now I have to ask you, because I think one of the most debated and detested words right now is moist.
Oh,
how do you some people fucking hate the word moist.
Whenever,
it's like you're one of them.
Whenever I hear someone describe a cake as moist, I'm just
that's
like,
good cake.
Oh,
dude, like carrot cake. Like, you can't have dry carrot cake. That needs to be moist as shit.
Coitus is another one of these words that's just like, never use that. In fact, I imagine someone actually was coitus mean again?
All right, here. This is Google, and it's not being dark this time. It is
not being dark.
Physical union of male and female genitalia accompanied by rhythmic movements.
Sex?
Yes, and it says colon sexual intercourse. So yeah, sex. It's sex.
So I imagine someone was just like, okay, or they're at a party or something, and they're just like, oh, I had coitus last night. And, like, everyone around him just shunned it. His wife and kids left him. Like, even the kids were just like, we know exactly why we're leaving Daddy. His job fired him. He was drug out into the street and shot. Papers.
Body eaten, set on fire.
Apparently, this was before the internet. Like, papers published that, like, man says he had coitus, completely shunned by all of society, banished and killed. If it was in the age of the internet, they would have put him on the top of one of Elon Musk's rockets and launched him into the sun, and Elon would have just been like, that one's not coming back.
I feel like that headline that you just talked about would be on The Onion and referring to Mike Pence.
Mike Pence claims he had coitus. Fired.
That would be perfect. I mean, technically, it says it's the medical definition for us. So, like, when you go to the doctor, I'm like, I'm having trouble with coitus. Even your doctor's probably gonna slap you. You know, like, what the fuck's wrong with you?
So one,
I hope you can't bang your wife.
So one, I hope I'm not fired. Two, maybe you'll know why you shouldn't be. Why I never told you guys about my podcast now. Three, welcome to Great Scott Marcus. I'm Scott. That one's Mark. You're on Ramble Entertainment on YouTube, where we talk about random shit. It's been a long time. This is our first ramble. This isn't even the topic for the ramble. And yeah, too bad. Sorry. Hope you didn't have your speakers up. Mark, it's been a while. How have you been? What have you been up to?
Been doing well. wedding, bachelor party, busy weekends, busy weeks, and this has been my weekend of not doing a lot. And this is a good way to kind of
This has been a great unwinding session,
man. Like it's just like this is a good time enjoying this. We've already done 90% of the recording.
Yeah, for those who don't know, we're
part.
actually re-recording this. You'll see us talking about that in the topic. Basically, we fucked up the first part. We actually did that first part in the first time.
It was a little dry, though.
It was a bit drier, but I still enjoyed it. And
this one's much more moist.
Yeah. Oh, God, why? Why? Since I already talked about it in the topic, basically, I unfortunately went through a breakup. It's been an incredibly mature experience. My 2.5-year relationship with a girl from overseas has been incredibly mature, and it's been come to a conclusion. It doesn't mean that it wasn't very difficult. I am not a person who wears my emotions on my sleeve, but yeah, it's been difficult nonetheless, even if very mature and well handled. But nonetheless, yeah, it kind of has some pertinence to why we haven't been on, and kind of just the first ramble that we want to get into. Mark, you ready to get into it?
Let's do it.
Let's get this over with. So this is what I wanted to bring up, and I wanted to bring it up because, basically things have come to an end for me with a long-standing relationship. Even more, I feel myself kind of entering back into society. For those who don't know, I live in pain, and I talk about it on every fucking show I record on this YouTube channel, so go find one of those. And basically, it's had me locked away, kind of just healing in my house for a long while, 4 years. And yeah, so re-entering society and just trying to get along with that, trying to be more social, trying to be more involved with people. But sometimes, it's good to just admit that, like, sometimes you're bad with some things that are required for social interactions or social media. I personally really don't plan to get back into social media, but might just take a small stab at it. Anyways, avoiding dancing around all of this, basically I immediately approached someone from work, and I was just like, you know anybody who does a good job with this? One of our coworkers does a good job with the thing I am looking for, not blowjobs. And so
it's like you peered into my soul and knew exactly what I was thinking about.
It was just this little twinkle in your eye.
I was like,
blowjobs. Anyway, so yeah, another great example that I don't have to dance around is pulled in the house with my car. I didn't pull into the actual house. I pulled into the garage that's attached to the house with my car, and it has a digital shifter. And I only just discovered that I hate digital shifters now because of this. I put it into park, or I thought I put it into park, and hit the garage door button, and then released my foot from the brake, and the car backed into the garage as it was coming down, lifting and scratching up my spoiler, lifting it off the trunk slightly. And so me and my dad need to repair that. And I have taken interior portions of a car apart before. I've taken off a door or a couple doors, mounting speakers and such, but I've never done actual body work. And I knew two of the guys at work who have. In fact, I should have just said that instead of all the crap before. But so I immediately was just like, look, I don't know anything about this, so I'm going to ask them instead of just trying to kind of do this dance of ignorance around a subject where you try to make yourself look smarter than you actually are, or more informed.
Shit, and I gotta put in my thing.
Oh, what? Yeah, you installing those neons, bro? Like, oh, yeah, I really thought about that the one time and, like, did some hard research into it. In fact, I don't think we actually did that small debate over what research is on the... It's fine, we'll skip it. Yeah, but, like... Same thing. They were looking at, like, car parts on the computer the one day, and I was just like, fine, while they get boners over that, I'm gonna go do work. And it's just like, I imagine back in high school, like having walked into that conversation and been like, oh, is
Mhm.
that, like one of those X-23 PR parts? Like, oh, bro, no way.
Like, no, dude, you're completely wrong.
Yeah,
What the fuck are you talking about?
it looked like an exhaust pipe.
Mhm.
Yeah, like, I don't know. We kind of also talked about this on the topic where it's just like,
Mhm.
is it a part of just being more mature? Are we starting to continue within our own culture of no longer doing this dance of like, I know things, I'm cool.
Yeah.
Instead just outright admitting, nope, don't know about it. Tell me about it. It's actually very interesting to me, and I want to be informed.
Well, I think now we're approaching our 30s,
We talked
and
about that.
we've learned a lot, and I think we've also learned that it's okay to not know everything that there is to know about everything. Like, it's
It's
fine if
impossible.
you're
It
just
is an impossible reach.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think the issue is that when you're younger, or when you're in your 20s, teens, whatever, you try to like always put on like an impressive front. Your ego is trying to inflate yourself a little bit all the time.
I think the
And that's when you
example we
do
used
that.
was like a dude or a chick at a party who like tries to know more about the band that's playing than.
Yeah. Or I mean, so like one example, when I was in college, I was taking an architecture theory course, and it kind of like shined the light on this whole thing of this notion of not really knowing and just saying no.
Yeah.
He asked, I was like, all right, how many ceiling tiles are in that room? And of course, I had no idea what the answer was, but I was trying to dance around and
193.
be logical. Yeah, but it was just like that wasn't the answer. But I was like, I don't know the answer, but I'm gonna try to make it seem like I do. So I'm trying to deduct, like, all right, well, it's about 10 feet, when tiled 2 feet, whatever. And it's just like, you don't know the answer, do you? I was like, well, I think it's like, no, what is the answer? What's the number? I was like, I don't know. Was
What's
like,
the
was that so hard?
accurate exact
Yeah,
answer?
it's like, was that so hard? I was like, no. I was like, there we go. Like, it's a yes or no question. So, and I think part of it is when you can come to that point where like it's okay to say you don't know. It's okay to ask someone else for any kind of I don't know, experience or just knowledge. I mean, everyone else knows something else about stuff. I mean, just go play trivia for a night. You'd be amazed what one other person might know about useless knowledge that someone else might not know. It's like, hey, who was in this movie? You might know. Like, all right, I'll tell you. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with admitting to being wrong or not knowing something specific like that.
It kind of circles back to like this notion that we have had on this channel for a while of doing good things, where it's just like, for how long was it that the cool kids were, I don't care, I'm too cool for this shit, and now it's,
I still don't care. I'm too cool for it.
You're a douche. I feel like there are some who kind of look to me because I just try to do good things. I just try to do nice things for others around me who I feel, might deserve it. And, like, that's okay. And, is it one of these notions of, like, will it ever be okay to look like the person who just doesn't know a thing, or to be that person who dances around the subject? It doesn't even matter. Like, is it about the cool factor, or is it more of a systemic thing within our culture where it's just like, looking informed has almost always been more widely accepted than
Right.
appearing ignorant. But is appearing ignorant or acknowledging one's ignorance going to become more powerful? Obviously, I don't think there will ever be a 100% of time kind of thing, but and all circumstances will depend. But I think that there's still a nice question to be had there on the subject.
Well, it's kind of like what you said earlier. To be a master of something is to always be a student. So what I want to kind of touch on is ignorance can sometimes have a negative connotation, and sometimes it's deserving of that negative connotation. But I think what we're talking about here is that
Acknowledging one's ignorance.
Yeah, acknowledging it, but just ignorance is the sense of just not knowing something. So like if someone's trying to become a master of another language, if they're fluent in English and trying to learn French, for example, like there's probably always something else to learn about it, and they could be fluent to you and I, but at the same time, they might not know, I don't know, like 17th century slang, but it's like, it's not saying that they are
how often
ignorant in the sense that they don't care, but they're ignorant. They just have ignored, which is the root of ignorance, like that part of the language, and they need to learn about it.
How often it happened in college where like someone knew some phrases in French or phrases in like Russian or something obscure, and they like they would say to sound like kind of hoity-toity or like maybe a bit more informed, like they would say these things, and I actually was there one time when like someone who actually spoke French like came up to them and they actually started like speaking French to them, and you could just see as they started to just lose all of their ground.
Their face just like, oh God,
and it's just happens? Like at the very least, like kind of just like acknowledge it. Like I think that person would have been able to stand their like some ground if they hadn't kind of been douchey about it. Like they just kind of seemed douchey. Like I think what had happened was like one of the girls said like merci or something in
merci beaucoup.
Thanks or whatever, or
like, thank you very much.
Or a greeting in French, and then I guess like one of the social justice warrior bros was just like, oh, you don't speak French. Yeah, and like he started kind of just spouting off, and then I think it was one of her friends came up to him, and she actually started speaking French, and like he just lost all his ground because instead of actually knowing the language, and this is also my assumption, to be fair, he never admitted to not knowing French, but he just kind of like completely backed off, and I think like left the party or something. But yeah, it's just like I think if he's
just trying to undermine the other person.
Yeah, if he wasn't like, if he didn't have such kind of negative intent on her, he really wouldn't have been a bad guy. In fact, he probably would have just come across as just kind of trying to have fun with it. And if her friend was being defensive, he could have just been like, I only know some phrases, I'm sorry, like I didn't mean to offend you, but yeah, like it kind of reminds me of like this dick measuring that goes on. Like still, like I can't believe I'm still surprised that this even exists still. Like again, a couple of car guys at work, and sometimes we have customers who also like dabble in cars. It's a very popular hobby. It's not surprising, but again,
I'm waiting for the point where people that you work with and people that come in like actually pull out their wieners with measuring tapes.
I think one of them basically walked up to me and they were just like, I can't believe he's saying this, and I was just like, I think there's a tape measure in here somewhere. And
go on, whip it out.
And yeah, it's I guess that's kind of another thing of just like, I would rather, I almost hate to kind of buy into this dick measuring that goes on, or I guess if you want to call it for the ladies, boob measuring that goes on.
Depth measuring,
depth of field.
Oh God. I'll never take a photograph the same way.
Anyway, this kind of thing that still goes on, I almost can't help but feel like you're being the bigger person. There it is. You're being the bigger person by simply just admitting, no, tell me about it.
Yeah.
Instead of like kind of, I don't want to call it stooping to this level, because there are plenty of kids that do it. There are plenty of adults that do it. Like, this is a thing that constantly, I see adults that constantly come in and, are like kind of, doing this, whether it's from the mouth or in their head or whatnot, and it's just like I often feel a greater comfort in my mind when I'm just like, I'm happy with myself and I don't need to do these things to be satisfied with myself. And teach their own. Some people love competition. I'm not against it, but it's just like, that's not what drives me. So it's interesting, and for some reason I am having an attack of OCD and need to take the change out of my wallet right now if you hear all the rummaging. So yeah, that happened. So
yes. I think it's about all I had to say on that.
Yeah, in the first version of this, I also did a lot
Yeah, I
of
really
the
didn't
talking
have a lot
too.
to say. It was a lot on you. It's cool.
I don't know. What I definitely want to say on okay, so here's one thing I definitely want to pull away from you before we conclude this first ramble, and I keep checking the time when I do that, Lean. How do you feel about like that kind of competition these days? Like, fuck, really? Skype, you're gonna
Quality comeback.
you're gonna
Quality
fuck
comeback.
up now? You were.
I
I
don't know
saw
what it
you.
is,
You were
man.
on your phone, weren't you?
I was no. My phone's over here. Dude.
Okay.
I haven't touched it in minutes.
Then you were masturbating because clearly there was something going on down there. And you should you should disconnect your dick from Wi-Fi. It pulls too much of the signal, and this is a bit of a problem. But before we we hang up the call because it's having too many problems, what I want to hear is like, would you rather just kind of like admit to not knowing anything, or maybe admit like, I don't know that about this subject, or do you still kind of do that dance? Because I find less and less I'm doing that dance, and I'm just like, no, tell me about it.
I'm trying to think of like anything recently where I've done that, and I think I'm typically kind of the person that if I'm coming across information that someone's giving me and I'm not well versed in it, I say, tell me about it. Like, shit, I think that happened earlier, like with you or Dakota or somebody. I was talking, and then they said something. I was like, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Like, what is that? But it's like, I don't have a problem with doing that.
Because it was only even like 3 or even 5 years ago that I still, like tried to do that dance. And admittedly, I was pretty successful at it. I am a person who consumes a lot of general information about politics, about social things, about just news in general. I know a lot of things. I don't typically hone in on those things, though. So, like, if we went deep on politics, I'm not really the person to talk too deep on that stuff with, like, like House regulations and filibustering and things like that. I know the words, but at its core, I do not know how the filibuster works. I know that it basically ties up the House in litigation, and that's the extent of it. And yet, only not too long ago, I would have just done that dance of ignorance. And I guess, I don't know, I can't tell if it's just a comfortability with myself or a maturity, a coming of age thing. I just find it interesting nonetheless.
You know what it reminds me of? It's Always Sunny whenever Charlie tries to be a lawyer.
Oh, it feels so awkward.
Filibuster. He's like, do you even know what that word means?
Yeah,
like, grand jury.
It feels so awkward. It creates that sensation in me where I'm like, I'm doing this wrong. Shut up, shut up, shut up.
Turn away and run.
Exactly.
Oh God, it's getting worse.
Okay, and with that is the end of our recording for episode 29. I think Mark is being attacked by a dog from what it sounds like. So we're going to go, and we'll see you in the next Rambles, even though this is the end of recording for us. You guys have a good one out there. Continue to do good things, and if you like what we had to do here, Mark, do the thing.
Do the thing.
Have a good one.
Bye.